If you need to test, Kim and Michael are watching.
They're watching? Hello, Kim and Mike. I'm glad you're watching. Okay. Let's move this over. This is good.
There are technical difficulties.
The technical what?
There are technical difficulties. They're watching to see.
You don't have a tea. You'll have to get some. Want to make a tea? Yeah, I can take Michael's job because he's not here.
Which is
I'm not so. What's there? Peppermint is good. Honey vanilla is good.
Do you have tea?
Well, I just asked Robert. Thank you. You missed it. If you would have been here,
You missed your shot.
you missed the mitzvah only because you went to.
Oh, did you find the dog owners?
Okay. Stephanie is watching. Shalom, Stephanie. How are you? And let's see who else is watching.
The gate is high, so I put 2 planters there and a little owl across the whole thing.
Okay, so Shira, Shalom, Shira. How are you feeling? Hello, Gail. How are you feeling? Hope you're both healthy and well and good. Salang yarn, as they say. No sugar, no sugar. Just the tea, full cup. Thank you very, very much. Okay, Art Chag Sameach, how are you? Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that. Okay, ready, my friends? Okay. Oh, Kim, we missed you. Corinne's watching us. Shalom, Corinne. And Harold is watching us from rural Oregon. Hello. Oh, Harold is watching from Oregon. I don't know. Harold, they say hi. The ladies say hi to you, Harold. Okay. Ladies, let's begin. Tonight's class is in the memory of Yitzchak Ben Yosef. His neshama should have an elevation. Good evening, Lori. Good evening, Gail. So we are coming from the parsha of Zachor, right? You know what that is? That's what we did on Saturday. To remember what Amalek did to us, to obliterate their memory from under the heaven, from their name should be forgotten forever. Yimach Shemo, very good. And we are going to, what's going to be this Thursday night and Friday? Purim. And of course, we're exactly right. Should have brought a grog with me just for the dramatic, no, not the other on Kodesh. Okay. So Thursday night, when we read the Megillah, and on Friday, when we read the Megillah, we're going to hear the name of Haman being mentioned. And what are we going to do? We're going to make a lot of noise. It's everyone's favorite part of the Megillah. Everyone. Actually, I take that back. For most people, their favorite part of the Megillah is when they get to make boo, 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 right, with the grogger. For some people, what's their favorite part? When they get to go shah, shah, shh. Some people get a lot of pleasure from shushing everybody else. So for them, their favorite part of the Megillah is after, the kids are making noise, they get to go shh. They feel very important and self-righteous because they're busy shushing everyone. You know what I'm talking about, right? So everyone is happy. They say a joke. In the Megillah reading, it's a joke. I didn't have a good joke to start. It's more of like you have to appreciate it. So in the Megillah, most of it is a unique tune. The melody, we're reading the Megillah is a unique tune. But there's 2 or 3 verses that are done with the tune of Eicha, the tune of the Tisha B'Av. On Tisha B'Av, we sit on the floor, we read also a book, Megillah, but it's a different tune, a very sad tune. So we describe the verses of after the decree of Mordechai, the decree of Haman, and the city of Shushan was sitting and mourning and crying. We do like a sad tune, the Eicha tune. We read about the decree, right? So Mordechai, when he heard, he was sitting with Omar. He was sitting with a sad, with ash and sackcloth. So why do we use a sad tune on the happy day of Purim? Because there's some depressed people in shul. They don't want to hear the happy tune. So to make them happy, we use a sad tune also. So everyone is happy on Purim. Okay, so everyone's happy to make the noise, and music, it gets much more interesting than the regular Torah reading. We get to make noise. So what I want to talk about tonight is this mitzvah to remember the memory of Amalek in order to obliterate them and to destroy them and to blot out their name, which is why we have a mitzvah to hear the Torah describing what Amalek did to us. It's a mitzvah to sit in shul on Megillah reading and to make noise and to make the name of Haman. And so let's talk about what exactly is Haman. Why do we hate Haman so much? Why is Haman so worthy of destruction? Is it even Jewish to hate? Now, I have to tell you, this conversation is even a Jewish value to hate other people is a burning, burning question. Happens to be this past Saturday here in Shul, Shabbos. There was a whole discussion among some of the people in the community. Robert was here, Moshe, a whole discussion. God forbid to say that Jews should hate. What do you mean? The Torah says to hate. It was a very, very important ethical conversation. Is it a Jewish value to hate? Are we supposed to hate our enemies? Are we supposed to hate those that are trying to kill us? And the truth is, when I remember, but a few months ago, we actually did a class. We did 2 classes on this. Hating those who hate us from a Jewish perspective, and I share my own journey. We talked about it, and we did a second class. There was so much feedback on the first one, and then we went even deeper. We went into this. So I don't want to really address the hating aspect today. I want to address more what exactly is Amalek, which we read about on Shabbos. What is Haman? Because Haman is a great-great-great-great-grandson of Amalek. And then what is Hamas? Now, I don't know if the individual members of Hamas, I don't know if Sinwar, may his soul, soul rot and be obliterated. Sinwar, we need like Graga. Let's do like Graga at the class with me, right? Sinwar is a descendant of Amalek or not, I don't know. And if Nasrallah is a descendant of Hamas, I don't know. Saddam Hussein used to pride himself on being a descendant of Nebuchadnezzar, who is a descendant of Amalek. So whatever, it's possible. I don't know, but either way, the ideology Amalek today is no longer a family. It's no longer a people. It's an ideology that I'm going to explain, God willing, tonight. What is the ideology of Amalek? What is the ideology of Haman and Hamas? So we can understand it, we can identify it, and we can know how to deal with it. And by doing this, we're going to answer one of the most burning, age-old questions that Jews have always asked, which is, after we ask the question, why does God allow the Holocaust, or why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? What's the next question we ask? Why do they hate us so much? Right? One of the Jewish questions of all time is, why is there anti-Semitism? Why is there hatred against us? We're so nice. We're so good. We're so kind. Why is there so much hatred in the world against the Jews? And it's only the Jews. I saw a picture today. The caption was, masses of students expected to protest the killings of civilians in Syria. I don't know if you're reading the news. In Syria, probably 1,000 civilians were killed over the last weekend, including women, children, tons of people were killed, civilians. Mass executions. They were making women run in the streets naked, and they took them out naked and killed them. Whole families, they went in, they killed everyone. Syrians. The Alawites, let's not give a class on Syrian politics, but the Alawites is one sect in Syria. That's where, what's his name? Assad. Assad was an Alawite. They're a minority in Syria, but so you have factions in Syria that are loyal to Assad, Alawites, and then they got revenge. They did a surprise attack against the rebels that have taken over control of Syria. So they ambushed, they attacked the Syrian forces there now. So they retaliated by killing the whole neighborhood of Alawites, including the women and the children. So someone from Ancestry.com would know if Sinwar is from Amalek. You have to get his DNA. I don't know. But so they killed like 1,000 people in that weekend. So the caption of the picture was, mass crowds of students expected to protest the innocent civilians being killed in Syria. It's a picture of the Columbia University, of their lawn, and it's empty. It's empty. It's an empty lawn. Masses of students expected to protest genocide, and somehow, because there's no Jews, of course, there's no Jews killing.
No Jews, and they just got $400 million.
I know. And Baruch Hashem. I'm just saying the idea that the world comes to protest Jewish genocide. I'm not even getting into the stupidity and the foolishness of the argument, but I'm saying the idea that the world hates us. Why do they hate us? Why? Because we're Jews. But why do they hate the Jews? Okay, so you can see they're jealous. So this is the question, and I've actually dealt with this in classes before, but obviously it's good to repeat it. And it's a burning question. It's a burning question that we need to be able to understand and internalize in a way, because once we can identify it and we can understand it, then it's much easier for us to deal with the hatred that we're facing.
Isn't it God created in that one with Esau?
So God created it. We're going to discuss it. Are they going to blame us? Oh, they're going to blame us for what happened in Syria? It's kind of hard to, because the Jews, I'm sure they could. I'm sure some conspiracy theorists can find a way that the Jews are in charge and involved and whatever. So Mindy's saying correctly, because of Sinai and the word when God came at Mount Sinai. I wasn't going to say this, but it's very much connected, and it is what I'm going to say. Sinai is the word Sinai, hatred. Are to say we're the chosen people. You're all right, but there's not a one size fits all answer to anti-Semitism. So let's first just understand very, very quickly who is Amalek. Why does the Torah tell us to hate them? And then we're going to get into the root of why is there anti-Semitism? Why is there hatred for the Jewish people? There's more than one answer. And based on that, we're going to understand what is the threat of Amalek today. And then how do we deal with that threat? Which is the ultimate question we need to know. So Amalek is a great-grandchild of Eliphaz. Eliphaz was the son of Esav. You heard of Esav, right? Okay. Eliphaz was the son of Esav, the nephew of Jacob, the nephew of Yaakov. And Eliphaz has a child whose name is Amalek. And Amalek has children. And they live near Rephidim, which is near Egypt. And when the Jewish people leave the slavery of Egypt, after 210 years of the Jews being slaves, being oppressed, going through a real genocide and a real Holocaust by the Egyptians, they're on the way out. And what happens? They've just left Egypt. They just crossed the sea. They haven't even received the Torah yet. We're talking about a month or so, 40 days probably, after the Jews have left Egypt. They're in their infancy as a nation. And the whole world has heard all the miracles and the stories of the Jewish people. And along comes Amalek. And what do? They attack the stragglers of the Jewish people, those that were ritually impure, that were outside of the camp. Because remember, there were clouds of glory protecting the Jews in the camp. So they attacked the few stragglers that were outside the camp. And right away, Moshe tells Yeshua to go and prepare an army. And they go out to fight. Sorry, not Yeshua. He sends someone else to go out to lead an army. And Yeshua and Aaron and Hur hold up his hands. He prays, and they win the war, and they destroy Amalek. Not destroy. I'm saying they win the war, and they repel Amalek. And after that, God gives an eternal mitzvah to the Jewish people. If you have the papers in front of you, if you're watching on my personal page, you'll see the. Oopsies, I just lost it. 1 second. Here we go. You can see the text over here from what we read on Shabbat and Saturday from Deuteronomy chapter 25, where God says, "You shall remember what Amalek did to you on the way when you went out of Egypt." This is a mitzvah of the Torah, to remember what Amalek did to you on the way when you went out of Egypt. How he happened upon you on the way, and you cut off all the stragglers at your rear when you were faint and weary, and he did not fear God. Therefore it will be, when the Lord your God grants you respite from all your enemies around you in the land which the Lord your God gives to you as an inheritance to possess, that you shall obliterate the remembrance of Amalek from beneath the heavens. Lo tishkach, do not forget. So here we have God telling us 2 commandments, actually 3 commandments. Commandment number 1 is, remember for the rest of your life, you have a mitzvah to remember what Amalek did to the Jewish people when you went out of Egypt. When they attacked you, when you were stragglers, when you were faint and weary, and he did not fear God. Mitzvah number 2 is obliterate them. Not make a ceasefire with them, not make a peace treaty with them, not come to some kind of agreement with them, obliterate them. That means exactly what it sounds like. Obliterate. Destroy them. They shouldn't exist anymore. Mitzvah number 3 is do not forget. Do not forget. Okay, so let's understand this mitzvah. That's why we blow the shofar and all that. But I want to ask you an obvious question. Was Amalek the first enemy to attack the Jewish people? No. Were they the last enemy to attack the Jewish people? No. Wish. And yet, is there any other enemy within the entire history of the Jewish people where God tells us to obliterate them, to never forget what they did to us, to destroy them? No.
But isn't it because it was right after God?
Yes. Well, let's understand for a second. What about the Egyptians? You know the Egyptians? Remember them? They enslaved us. They tortured us. They literally, brutally murdered, raped, killed hundreds of thousands of Jews, millions of Jews, out of the numbers. And what does the Torah say to do to the Egyptians? Nothing. Not only does the Torah not say to not do nothing, if you look in the same book of Deuteronomy, just a few chapters before, where did I go here? Just a few chapters before, in chapter 25, I'm going to share my screen again so you can see it. Or if you're home, just take out a Chumash and go from chapter 25 to chapter 23, just two chapters before. God tells us a commandment in the Torah, one of the 613 commandments, not to despise an Edomite. Edom is from Esav, for he is your brother. You shall not despise an Egyptian, for you were a sojourner, you were a dweller in his land. That's very interesting. I wouldn't call this Jewish slaves in Egypt sojourners or tourists, residents. They were for the beginning, and when they were slaves in Egypt's land. So I'm going to ask you the most simple, obvious question. The Egyptians that enslaved us and killed us and tortured us, 80 years of slavery. You're right, 210 years we were there. Most of it we were enslaved. But 80 of those years we were enslaved. 80 years of back-breaking, brutal torture and labor. Slave labor. And what does God say in the Torah? Don't despise them because they let you live in their land. They gave you a roof over your head. They let you live there. Don't despise them. Amalek, what did Amalek do already? Did Amalek enslave us? No. Did they torture us? No. Did they kill a lot of us? No. They killed a few stragglers outside of the camp. Then we went to war. We won them in war. They lost the war. There was a terrorist attack. They killed a few Jews outside the clouds. We went to war. We won the war. And that's it. Then we moved on. The whole story of Amalek, I don't know, was a day, 2 days, 3 days. It's not 80 years. There's no mass murder of Jews. There's no enslavement of Jews. There's no bathing in the blood of Jewish children by Amalek. The king of Egypt bathed in the warm blood of Jewish children he killed to bathe in their blood. And yet the Egyptians, not so bad. Amalek, they attacked us. It's true they attacked us. What they did was wrong. But in the big picture, if you think about it objectively, what they did is nothing compared to what the Egyptians did. And yet the Egyptians, God is telling us, don't despise them. You are sojourners in their land. Oh, Amalek, don't you ever forget what they did to you, how they attacked you. For the rest of your lives, you shall hate them and obliterate them. I'm not bringing these other verses where God talks about we need to destroy Amalek in the parasha of Shalach, where they attack us, God said you have to destroy them, and etc. We learned recently in the morning the story of King Saul, where God sent Shmuel the prophet, Samuel the prophet, to tell him to destroy every last member of Amalek. And he felt bad, he didn't, and he lost his kingdom as a result. And their animals. So the question, the obvious question, if you think about it, you never thought about this, right? Is it's true that Amalek attacked us, granted, and that was not very nice of them. They're bad people. But if you think about it in the big picture of all those people that attacked us, the Egyptians, the Plishtim, how many times did the Plishtim attack? Well, the Greeks, the Romans. So he says after the Bible, but still we don't find anywhere a mitzvah to hate the Romans. The Romans destroyed our temple. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylonia, destroyed the first temple. We don't hate the Romans. But even when we celebrate Hanukkah, can we celebrate Hanukkah? Remember the Greeks, was there any part of the Hanukkah celebration to destroy what the Greeks did to us? We don't eat Greek, I don't know what, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, well, I don't know what the Greeks, what did Antiochus wear on his head? I don't know. I'm saying we don't eat Antiochushin or whatever. Antiochushin. Not that we eat oil because the oil burned for 8 days, so we eat a lot of oil because of the miracle of the oil. And we remember that the Jews won the war. There's no anti-Greek part to the story. In Purim, a part of the Purim celebration is the booing of Haman's name, the eating of the Hamantashen, the remembering of the sons of Amalek that were killed and how they were hung on the tree. And we read it out loud and we make a whole thing about it. We're remembering how the sons of Amalek, the sons of Haman, same thing, were killed, were hung. There's a whole focus in the Megillah on the destruction of Amalek, of Haman. You don't find that in any other, even in the Pesach story. There's no part of the Pesach story where we talk about how Egypt deserves to be destroyed forever. We remember the miracles God did for us. We remember that God saved us and God split the sea and God gave us the bread and God, even the plagues were just so that Pharaoh let us go. There was no destruction of Egypt for the sake of destroying Egypt. There was destruction only to allow the Jews to leave Egypt. So if you think about it, of all of the enemies of the Jewish people, no enemy did as little damage to us as Amalek did in numbers. And yet no enemy is more hated and despised by God than Amalek. So this is very interesting. We got to understand, who is Amalek? What is so bad about Amalek that they deserve this kind of obliteration that Egypt and Pharaoh don't get? Got your attention? It's a good question, right? Okay, come back next week. No, I'm just joking. Well, Mindy, your rating is correct. Mindy obviously is very wise, and it's exactly what I'm going to explain. So let's read a Gemara. I'm going to answer. I want to first read a piece of Talmud together, which is describing, it's from the Megillah, the tractate called Megillah, on page 14, at the very, very top of the page. And there, the Megillah, the Gemara is describing the hatred of Haman and Amalek. And the Megillah, the Talmud Megillah quotes a verse. Just a little introduction. Haman wanted to kill the Jewish people, right? Now, Haman was afraid that Achashverosh would not agree to this plan. Why not? Because the Jews were good financiers. The Jews were probably good. I don't have the stock market back then, but the Jews were good for. Jews are good for the economy. That's a fact. Now, Achashverosh, in Haman's mind, Achashverosh is not going to want to kill all of these people that are paying taxes and that are, good for the economy. So Haman, when he comes the first time to Achashverosh to convince him, to give him his ring, to sign the edict that the Jewish people will be exterminated, how does Haman try to convince Achashverosh to allow him to kill the Jewish people? Who remembers that detail of the story? Anyone?
Does it have to do with the lump sum of money?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. He comes to the king. He says there's a nation who lives here. They're different than everyone else. They have their own customs, their own rules, their own laws. They won't drink your wine, etc., etc. And then after the whole speech, he says, so I want to kill them. Here's what I'll do, king. I will give you 10,000 talents of silver, which is a lot of money. 10,000 talents of silver. I remember a few years ago, I heard a whole calculation, how much silver that is, how much it's worth. I don't remember, but it's a lot. It's a lot of money. To make up for the financial loss to the state coffers that will be created by the loss of all of these Jews that are paying taxes and that are boosting the economy, I will offset that loss of the Jewish people by giving from my own pocket 10,000 silver talents to the king's treasury.
And he had that much money?
Yeah, that much money. He was very, very wealthy, obviously. Maybe he stole, he had that money. He was offering that money anyway. And how does the king respond? Anyone remembers?
He said, sure.
The king said, he said more than just yes. I should have put the verses in the text, but you'll trust me. The king said to kill the Jews, of course. And the money, I don't need the money. I don't need your money. You should go kill the Jews. I agree wholeheartedly. Here's my ring. You can make any edict you want about the Jews. I give you permission to sign it into law. You don't have to show it to me. Whatever you want, here's my ring. Go write whatever you want about the Jews. That's literally the words. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. So the Gemara quotes a Rabbi Abba, who wants to understand this dialogue between Haman, who comes to the king to offer 10,000 talents of silver for permission to kill the Jews, and the king who responds, I don't need your money, go ahead and kill them. You don't even need to pay for it. The honor is all yours for free. So Rabbi Abba tells us as follows. Let's read a quote from the Megillah, from the Talmud of Megillah, page 14a. Just write the word Megillah, whatever. So the king says to Haman, the verse says, the silver is given to you. Oh, the verse is here. The silver is given to you. The people also to do with them as it seems good to you. That's what the king responds to Haman. So Rabbi Abba said a parable. To what can the actions of Achashverosh and Haman be compared? So he says it's compared to two individuals, one of whom had a mound in the middle of his field, and the other of whom had a ditch in the middle of his field. The owner of the ditch said to himself, who will give me this mound of dirt? I would even pay for it with money. And the owner of the mound said to himself, who will give me this ditch for money that I may use it to remove the mound of earth from my property? And one day they happened to meet. The owner of the ditch said to the owner of the mound, sell me your mound so I can fill in my ditch. And the mound's owner, anxious to rid himself of the excess dirt on his property, said to him, take it for free if only you had done so sooner. You understand? Let me explain what's happening over here. You have a parable of two people. One person has a massive mound of dirt in his field. The other guy next door has a big hole in his field. So the guy with the hole in the field sees his pile of dirt and says, if I only could take that dirt, and, but it's not mine. One day he meets the guy that owns the dirt. He says, can I pay you for your dirt? I need it so bad, I'll pay you whatever you want. And the owner of this mound of dirt that's ruining his view from his back patio says, pay me, please. Bring the shovel, bring the truck. It's all yours. Just get it out of my way. It's ruining the view. I hate it. I can't stand it.
So Ahasuerus didn't like the Jews.
He didn't like the Jews. So too, Rabbi Abba is explaining what was the dialogue over here between Haman and Achashverosh. Haman, who he's the ditch or he's the mound? What do you think? He's the ditch. He wants to buy the right to kill the Jews. He comes to the owner of the Jews, the owner of the dirt, the owner of the mound. He says, I'll pay you for your mound. And Achashverosh says, pay me. Please, I was waiting for you. If only you would have done sooner. Take care of this Jewish problem for me. Make sense, the parable? Yeah? I have a question for you. Everyone says it thinks it makes sense. What did you not understand that this parable just explained to you? When a rabbi brings a parable, why does he bring a parable? To explain something, right? You don't understand? Let me give you an example. What did the example tell you that you didn't understand?
He stayed in line of the king, how worthless the Jews were to him.
The verse says that. The verse says, take the money. The money is yours. I come and say, I'm offering you money to do something. And you say, I don't even need your, I'm so desperate to do it. I don't need your money. The verse says that. The king says to Achashverosh, the money is, the money is given to you and the nation. Do what you want. I get it. Achashverosh, yeah.
Did he hate the Jews before Haman came to them?
Obviously, that's what it's saying. He said, take them. I wish you would have come sooner. Yeah, Halavai, he says.
I read something that he was, he made quick judgments. If you suggested something, okay.
Yes, he was impulsive. Correct.
Yeah, so he might not have even thought of this before. It's Haman who gave him the idea and he said, okay, do it. Like he never thought of it himself.
That's true. That's true. The one that initiates this conversation that makes it happen is Haman. And one Haman, Achashverosh didn't come to Haman and say, what should we do about this Jewish problem? You're right. When Haman comes to the king and says, we got this problem called the Jewish people, and I have a plan, Achashverosh also says, a plan, you can do whatever your plan is, I'm good. But my question to you is that we all understand the very sad, grim, depressing reality of anti-Semitism. There's people that hate us, and there's more people that hate us. So what is Rabbi Abba telling us about the hatred of the king and Haman that we didn't understand before?
It's illogical.
It's illogical, okay?
He didn't even care.
He didn't care about the money.
Well, he didn't even care, just do whatever you think. When it says, to do with them as it seems good to you. The king didn't even say, kill him, not kill him, move him out.
Right. So I hear what you're saying, and I'm looking at the comments online. People are saying that they had the same need. They both wanted the Jews gone, right? So what's the difference between the mound and the ditch? Seemingly, they both hated the Jews. And I'll ask you another question. Haman, in the parable, the person with a ditch needs the earth for a purpose, to fill the
power?
what's that? The person in the parable, the person with a ditch, why does he want the earth? To fill the hole. What is Haman going to do with the Jews? Destroy them, kill them. Is he filling a hole? No, he's destroying them. There's no power. Power is if I enslave you, I own you, I have power over you. If I kill, not you, God forbid, I'm saying if you kill a person, if Haman kills a person, does he have power over the dead person? They're dead. That's not power. You only have power over a living person. The moment you kill them, you're not really very powerful over them anymore. If Haman said, I have a shortage of manpower to build, pyramids, and I want to go enslave them to build my pyramids, yeah, then I understand. You're taking the Jews as slaves. You have a need. You're short on slaves. Now you have slaves to do your work. So now you're filling a need. The person with a ditch had a need, and the person with the dirt had a solution to the need. But here it just seems that they both hated the Jews. Haman is just killing the Jews for the sake of killing the Jews. He's not getting anything back for it. It's not filling a hole of a ditch. So it actually seems that the parable doesn't help at all. In fact, it's not even an accurate parable. You guys following the Gemara here? Make sure I'm clear before I give you the beautiful answer of the Rebbe. The beautiful answer of the Rebbe explains that there are actually two different kinds of haters. There's two different forms of anti-Semitism. There's the anti-Semitism of Achashverosh, which is described as someone that has a mound of dirt. And there's the anti-Semitism of Haman, which is someone that has a hole in the dirt. You see, when the Gemara when Rabbi Abba brings a story of two people, one with a mound of dirt and one with a hole, he's not telling you what happens when there's anti-Semitism. This piece of Gemara, says the Rebbe, is coming to explain to us why there is anti-Semitism. Why is there hatred against the Jewish people? Why are there people that feel a need to destroy and to annihilate innocent, beautiful Jews who help the economy?
Like Haman felt empty inside.
Exactly. So there's two forms of hate in the world. There's two forms of hate. But just as there's two forms of love. The Mishnah, Ethics of Our Fathers, tells us there's two kinds of love. There's a love that's because of something. I love you because what you give to me. I love you because whatever. And then there's a love which is a selfless love that's not based on something. It's a pure love. So as the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, that when the love is based on something, when that something goes away, the love goes away. But if it's a true selfless love, it's an eternal love. The same thing is true with hate. There's a hate for a reason, and there's a hate which is an illogical emotion of hate that is not rooted in a cause. It's illogical. So there are some people that hate the Jewish people the way Achashverosh does, which in the Gemara is described as a mound. They stick out. You have this beautiful golf course. It's a gorgeous golf course. You live in Eagle Trace, right? It's a beautiful golf course. And then in Mitamol, someone dropped a whole dirt truck, a cement truck, broken. There's a big mound of dirt in the middle. It ruins the view. So there's some people who look at the Jewish people and they stick out like a sore thumb. We dress differently, and we talk differently, and we eat differently, and we pray differently, and back then we didn't have idols. We prayed to the invisible God, and we kept Shabbos. We didn't engage in all the immoral acts that the other nations did. So we were different than them. We stood out, which is what Haman first says, is one nation different than everybody else. That's an anti-Semitism that comes because a person can't see himself aligning and living in harmony with Jews that are different than him. Described like a mound. But then you have those who hate us on a much, much deeper level. And they hate us not because of what we do and how we look. They hate us because how empty they feel inside themselves. They hate us because of the ditch, because of the void, because of the feeling of worthlessness and emptiness that we create within them. It's not that we're ruining their landscape or their view from their patio of the golf course. They hate us because they have a ditch. They hate us because deep down, maybe subconsciously, they know that we are God's chosen people. And they know that we are God's purpose for creation. And that we were given a job to illuminate the world. And they look at the Jewish people and they see something sublime. They see something holy. They see something special and beautiful. And suddenly, they feel a big hole. They feel this big emptiness. And that hole, that pit, that empty space is why they hate the Jew. They think, one second, I'll take a question, 1 second. They think that if I get rid of the mound of dirt, if I destroy the Jew, the emptiness that I feel within myself will go away. So instead of filling themselves and becoming more meaningful, productive, healthy, happy, kind, ethical human beings, instead, what do? They turn that emptiness within to become a hatred for the Jews that make them feel empty. Yes?
I was going to say something that's kind of like terrible, but there are Jews that see religious Jews and they hate them too. And
Yep.
it's the same thing. It's because when they see a religious Jew,
They feel
they
empty.
feel empty. So instead of acknowledging that it's their own problem and they need to do something about it,
Yes, I'll repeat what you just said on the record. Correct. Some people hate others because of the emptiness it makes them feel within themselves. And it bothers them. They know that I should be living a more meaningful life. I know my life should be more godly, more divine, more spiritually oriented. But instead of seeing the religious Jew and being inspired to live a more meaningful, godly life, instead they try and fill that emptiness by hating the Jew, by hating the religious Jew, yes? But we're saying this in the context. No, okay. But the point is, they have friends.
Well, I should say I know people like that.
But there's other people that the hatred is not that deep. The hatred is because they see a religious Jew, they see a Jew, and say, this person looks totally different than me. And they find a hard time saying, oh, well, if I'm a Jew and I think I'm a good Jew, and this person is walking around with, keeping cool, walking to play with their bags of, silver foil and whatever. And so now they feel a mound. They feel this like disconnect not because they're empty. There are many Jews that are not empty Jews. They feel spiritual in their own way. And it bothers them to see someone who's much more in your face about their Judaism, much more obvious in their Judaism, and they say, this is a mound. This stands out. This stands out.
A lot of
So-
people also think that Jews are very elegant.
Yeah.
The way they express their faith.
So the point is, there's two kinds of haters in the world. When Pharaoh wanted to destroy the Jewish people, why did he hate the Jewish people? What does it say? What does it say in the Torah in the beginning of the book of Exodus? He gathers his fathers, he says, "Hava nischak maloi." Come, let us deal wisely or cunningly with the Jewish people, lest they increase and become multiply and join our enemies and rise up against us. The Jews were mass producing. The Jews were having 6 kids at a time. Remember, the Jews were having a lot of babies. So Pharaoh becomes afraid of the Jews. It was an illogical hatred because the Jews never ever were going to fight against the Egyptians. They didn't have anything against the Egyptians. They weren't trying to overthrow the Egyptians. It wasn't authentic. It wasn't real. But there was a reason for it. The fact that Pharaoh felt the need to enslave the Jewish people was not a hatred that came out of nowhere. It was a hatred that came out of a threat that he felt threatened by the Jewish people. However, when the Jews left Egypt and we were traveling on the path, who were the Jews at this point? Who are the Jews? We're nothing. We're a nation of slaves that left slavery 40 days ago. Did we own land? No. Were we attacking Amalek in their land? No. Were we an ideological threat to them? We hadn't received the Torah yet. We weren't even Jews in the conventional sense. We didn't even have a religion yet. We weren't ideologically a problem for the Amaleki people. We weren't a threat to them. We weren't a political or army coming with attacks on them. And that's our go back to the text that we printed before. The text that God says to remember. We read about how Amalek tried to attack us, etc. And why we need to always hate them and obliterate them. Let's read it again carefully. What is God saying? What should you remember? Verse 18. Look at all the details. So many descriptions. What did Amalek do wrong? What Amalek did to you on the way. What does on the way mean? You were homeless, landless nomads. We weren't in the land that they were attacking our land. There was no clearly your colonizers and occupiers. We were on the derech, on the path. We were on the way. We didn't own land yet. We weren't occupying anybody's territory. As if we cut off all the stragglers at your rear when you were faint and weary. We weren't a military threat. We didn't have an army. We didn't have weapons. We didn't have generals and Air Force. We had nothing. We were a tired, weary group of straggling slaves. He did not fear God, meaning we had no ideological dispute with Amalek. We weren't a religion. We hadn't received the Torah yet. And nevertheless, brazenly, for absolutely no logical reason whatsoever, Amalek attacked us because they really hated us. Because there was an emptiness when they heard that there's Jewish people that were saved by God. At that moment, this big ditch opened inside them. And they said, as long as there's Jewish people that are living with God, as long as there's Jewish people that have God's blessings and the connection taking care of them, I will never be able to be, as long as the Jewish people have this connection, I will never be able to live, I will never be able to live happily. I will never, this is what Amalek is saying, I will never be at peace with myself as long as there's Jews that have God with them. And therefore they attacked us for no reason. We weren't a threat. We didn't have an army. We didn't have land. We didn't have a religion. We didn't have anything. They attacked us because hatred is illogical. That is what defines Amalek. At its core message, the evil of Amalek is a hatred that has no reason. And that's why when the Greeks attacked us, when the Egyptians attacked us, when the Romans attacked us, why did the Romans attack the Jewish people? Because we weren't loyal to them, we were fighting, there was Bar Kokhba, there was this, there's a lot of historical components here. With the Greeks, we were living in Greek territory and we weren't submitting to the Greeks and we fought against the Greek governor. There was a buildup. There was a logical explanation why the Greeks wanted to destroy the Jews in Israel. There was an explanation why the Romans destroyed the temple. It was evil what they did, but it was an evil like Achashverosh. It had an explanation. The definition of hatred that has no explanation is Amalek. Hatred, because I hate you. Why? Because I hate you. Because I have a void inside me that makes me feel empty, and therefore I hate you no matter what. No matter how much it will cost me, and no matter how much I have to lose and how little I have to gain. When we describe the evil of Haman as a descendant of Amalek, it's the exact same thing. What did Haman have to lose from the Jewish people being in Persia? Nothing. Haman was the most powerful that he could ever be. He would not be any more powerful by killing the Jews. He was the second most powerful person in the entire country. The only person above him was the king himself. If he was looking for power, he should have killed the king. If he was looking for power. There was nothing a Jew could do to him. He made everyone bow down to him. The whole country served him, worshipped him, bowed down to him. What made him so angry? What made him that he couldn't sleep at night, that he had to go build the gallows in the middle of the night and go to the Pharaoh, to Achashverosh in the middle of the night? Mordechai wouldn't bow down to him. He saw one little Jew, not a little Jew. Mordechai's not a little Jew. He saw one Jew who wouldn't bow down. That's it. Everything is not worth it. These are the words of Haman. He comes to his wife Zeresh and he says, I have everything. I have everything. But all of this is not worth anything to me. As long as I see Mordechai the Jew sitting at the gate, I should have printed this. I'm not by heart, because not read the Megillah by heart. But these are the words of Haman to his wife Zeresh. I have all the power in the world, but there's a Jew sitting at the gate, and he's not going to bow down to me. He has a God that's not me. I can't exist. All of everything I have is nothing, is not worth anything to me as long as Mordechai exists. That night, he couldn't go to sleep. He couldn't lie down and go to sleep as long as there was a Mordechai that existed that was sitting at the gate of the king. That's the evil of Haman. That's the evil that needs to be eradicated. That's the evil that can never be redeemed. There's no talking to such hatred. There's no negotiation with such hatred. What does Mordechai do when he sees about the decree? So if Mordechai was living today and he was advised by the advisors of our Israeli government, probably, what would he do? Or even by our president, he sit down, have negotiations, bring in parties, and have teams going to discuss. We can find a place where we can live in peace. We'll go to one part of Shushan, and we won't go to the other part of Shushan, and we'll live quietly, and we won't bother anybody. Yeah, we'll make concessions. Yeah, we'll pay you to live in this part of Shushan. We'll pay you. We'll bring water to the other part of Shushan. That's not what Mordechai does. Mordechai says there's only one solution. We got to destroy them. When he tells Esther to go to the king, we have to fight. And when they get permission to do it, the king says, Esther, what do? I want a day to go and kill all of our enemies. So I wrote in my email on Friday, when they killed most of their enemies, but in the city of Shushan, they hadn't finished killing them all on the 13th day of the month. And Haman, Achashverosh comes to Haman, to Esther bragging, look at us. We killed so many people. So many enemies. The 10 sons of Haman were hung. What does Mordechai say?
Kill the rest.
Oh, Esther, but it's Mordechai. She says to the king on the instruction of Mordechai, we're not satisfied. There's still more haters. There's still more evil. We need to eradicate evil. Hate that has no logic needs to be destroyed. You can't talk to it. Give you an example. Well, we'll get to the last in a second. Give you an example. You have milk. You open up the fridge. You take out milk, right? And obviously, you're about to pour into your coffee. And what do you see? Or you pour it into your coffee, let's say. And what do you see floating in the coffee now? Little pieces, kernels. There you go. Pieces of whatever. What do? You throw out the entire cup of coffee. Why? It's a good cup of coffee. Coffee is a very important drink. It's a very important commodity. I've had at least 3 cups today. Coffee is important. Throwing out coffee, it's terrible. Why? When the milk is spoiled, there's no redeeming the milk. There's no, we'll mix it into more coffee, we'll dilute it. There's no add some more water, It's spoiled. It's spoiled. There's nothing you can do but throw it out. It's over. It's gone. It's not hate. So we use the word hatred in the wrong context. I don't want to go into the whole thing of hate because I was a different class. I'm almost out of time. I have one more thing I still want to say. But the point is that some things are not redeemable. If it's a non-Jew that hates us the way Achashverosh does, where he feels that the Jews are different, if it's a dumb kid on college campus, no insult to this college campuses, but the dumb kid on campus who doesn't know anything, their education is from TikTok, despite being in like the Ivy Leagues of America, but that's where they get their education, their information from. So then we have to talk to them and educate them and speak to them and try and explain to them where they're wrong. But when you're dealing with something that is pure hate, that's an illogical hate, there is no language that will ever change them. Haman is dealing with a ditch. He's dealing with a ditch that's not fillable. aside from himself. That needs to be eradicated. So today we come to the new manifestation of Amalek today, which I have to tell you, until 2 years ago, if I was 2 years ago giving a class on Amalek, I wouldn't be saying what I just said now. I'd be telling you how Amalek means coldness and it means doubts, and giving you many spiritual explanations for the evil of Amalek, because for many, many years, when Jews lived in better times and we didn't face an obvious threat of the pure, illogical, unadulterated hatred of Amalek, so we understood Amalek in more spiritual terms. And there's a lot of spiritual explanations for what Amalek is. But today, after October 7th, it is obvious to anyone with half a brain to see in the most simple and obvious way how Amalek, who attacked the Jews for no logical reason, had a great-great-grandchild called Haman, who attacked the Jews for no logical reason, for no benefit to himself. He was willing to lose money, 10,000 talents of silver, to kill an enemy that was making him feel empty inside, that was taking away his sense of importance and inner, I don't know what. Inner peace is more than inner peace, inner sense of worth, of values. It was taking it away from him, his superiority. It was making him feel inferior. And today we have the same thing. Anyone that tells you what's happening in Israel today is a conflict is confused, or they're uninformed. Hamas is not in conflict with Israel. It's a pathological enmity. It's pathological. If Hamas was fighting Israel in a conflict for land, for territory, for money, they had much more to gain by negotiations and everything to lose. They had a land. We gave them Gaza. For free, we gave it to them. And we were giving them water, and we were giving them electricity, and we were giving them work permits, and we were giving them suitcases of cash from Qatar every single month. They were doing quite well for themselves, Hamas. And if they would have kept the game going, they would still be getting suitcases of cash from Qatar every month. They'd still be living a good life. There were beautiful homes in Gaza on the water. They were doing very well. And so if their hatred was just some ideological, whatever, like some other nations, they would have kept their own self-interests first. What Hamas did on October 7th was illogical. It was illogical. It made no sense from a strategic perspective. What did they think was going to happen?
Get more land.
They didn't think they were going to get more land. They didn't think they were going to conquer Israel. Even in their most wildest dreams, they didn't ever dream that they're going to conquer Israel. They were hoping to take some more kibbutzim, to take more hostages, to get past the store, to get to Ashkelon, maybe in their fantasias and their fantasies. They didn't think they would get more land. They knew Israel was going to retaliate. They knew that innocent people in Gaza would die, if there's such a thing as innocent people. They knew people would die. They didn't care. Why? Because hate is not logical. It's pathological. It's pathological. And there's a conflict. There's a conflict, not a conflict. There's people trying to live in peace. And there's people that pathologically have an emptiness within, have a ditch within that is unfillable, and therefore they will never, ever, ever stop. As long as they exist, they will continue to try and destroy that which makes them feel inferior. And therefore God tells us there's only one thing that you can do. Only one thing. Destroy the hate that exists against you. People are the innocent civilians of Gaza. The kids in Gaza are taught to hate. And this is something that even the UN has recognized, which if the UN recognizes this, it must be so obviously and patently true that even the UN couldn't find a way to ignore it. There was 3 different resolutions of the UN deals with the fact that the Arabs, the PA curriculum teaches hatred. In there, I just saw an example for a quick second, now before the class. In their textbook, they're showing when you throw a slingshot, when you throw showing not gravity. I forgot, just slipped my mind. It's an example for physics. An example of an Arab kid shooting rocks in a slingshot at Israeli tanks. That's in their science class. That's not in their history class. Understand? That's a picture from a textbook. Officially, we're teaching physics. And really, the subliminal messaging is that a kid should be resisting the Israeli occupation. They're taught at a young age to hate. And therefore, what do you do with such hate? Eradicate it. Haman is an ish tsar oiv. It says that Haman's an ish tsar, a bitter man, an evil man. Tsar also means a narrow man. He has an emptiness inside that will never, ever, ever be filled unless he kills us or we kill him. And that's the message for us. Tell you a story. Famous story. Whoever's following me so far. And with this story, one more very short point. So they say a famous story about the swan, about the scorpion that wanted to go across the lake, and they couldn't go across the lake, right? You know the story? So she's a swan. So she says to the swan, could you take me across the lake? The swan says, I can't put you on my back. I put you on my back. You're going to bite me and kill me. So the scorpion says to the swan, as long as I'm swimming, you're on the water, I can't bite you. Because if I bite you and you die, I'll also die. I can't swim. So you know that you're safe because I'm not going to bite you while you're on the water. Sounds like good logic. So the swan says, okay, in that case, sure, come. I'll give you a ride across the river. And the scorpion gets on top of the swan, and they're swimming so peacefully along this beautiful river, singing, I don't know, Old MacDonald had a farm or something. I don't know what they were singing, humming along, row, row, row your boat. And then, all of a sudden, middle of the river, scorpion, Nishka can't einhalten, was saying that she couldn't hold himself back. He's sitting on top of a swan. How could he not bite the swan? He bites the swan. And the swan feels a poison going through its body, and it feels its body starting to shut down. It says, you got me. You tricked me. You bit me. I'm going to die. But Adam said, you're also going to die. So why did you bite me? So some people say the story, the scorpion says, it's the Middle East. But the real story is the scorpion says, I'm a scorpion. What else can I do? I'm still a scorpion. Yes, it's true that logically, as a scorpion, I shouldn't bite you because I'm in the river. But a scorpion is a scorpion. A scorpion can't help but be a scorpion. A hater like Haman is designed in a way they cannot do anything else. They are not redeemable. They're not teachable. They're not savable. As long as the generation of kids are raised and taught hate, then they are part of the problem. They're part of the hate that has to be eradicated. Because hate cannot be taught. It's illogical. That's Haman. I'll end with this. If you look carefully at the verses we read when God tells us to destroy Amalek, it said two things. The verses started by saying, remember what Amalek did. And then it ended by saying, don't forget, right? It starts, remember what Amalek did to you. They attacked you on the way. And the verses end with another command, lo tishkach, do not forget. What's the difference between remembering and not forgetting? So there's many explanations. I won't give a very powerful sermon on it, but something very, very super simple. To not forget is in my mind. It's not an action. It's don't forget. To remember is an action. It's an act. You need to do something to remember. Remembering is active. Not forgetting is passive. Remembering is, you got to verbalize it. And therefore, when God says don't forget, he means don't forget. When God says remember, what is God telling us to do? Now, once a year, we have a mitzvah to verbally read out loud in the synagogue in public the verses describing what Amalek did to us to make sure we won't forget. Which means that just silently thinking about the evil of hatred today, just silently thinking about the evil of Hamas today, or of Hezbollah today, or of those that have no other desire in life other than to hate us and to kill us. More than they love their own children, they hate our children. Where more than they love their own future and care about their own future, they hate our future. It's not enough to just remember that in our own minds, to not forget that in our own minds. Don't forget. The mitzvah of zachar, the mitzvah of remembering means, on a simple level, to verbalize it, to gather in public come to synagogue and to read out loud a description of how Amalek attacked us when we were on the way, when we were weak and weary and had no land and had no army and had no religion, and they still attacked us. And that, my friends, is a very, very, very important message for us, which is that it's not enough to just in our own private minds to remember, to not forget. We need to verbalize it. We need to be proud and not be afraid to stand up and say, yes, the people in Gaza are full of hate. A hate that is irredeemable, a hate that is being taught to them at a young, young age. And this is the hate that God tells us needs to be obliterated from the earth. We need to be proud and say it loud and clear, which hopefully I'm doing, and we all need to do as loudly as we can to ensure that very, very soon the kingdom of God will be complete, and the kingdom of God will be complete with the coming of Mashiach, when the evil of the world, when Amalek is destroyed. That happen very, very soon. God willing, you're all welcome to join us for a beautiful Purim. Thursday night, we're going to read the Megillah here at, what time? I don't remember. 7:30, I think? 7:45. Thank you. You can come, bring your graggers. We have graggers too. You can make a lot of noise at Haman. Now, when you're banging a Haman, and you think, why Haman? You'll know. Pharaoh had a reason. Haman hated us illogically. Then Friday morning, the Megillah reading at 8:30 in the morning, Friday morning, at 10 o'clock Friday morning, and at 5 o'clock Friday afternoon before the party. The party's at 5:30. So if you want to hear it before, we were first going to do it in the party, but it never works. The noise, the kids, it's like, that doesn't work. I know. So if you don't come in the morning, come at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock we're in the Megillah. Not in this room, we're in the social hall. Set like a shul. We're going to dive in there Friday night also. So 5 o'clock we're in the Megillah. Then at 5:30 will be an amazing Purim party with a murder mystery and a lot of food and games and competition. And yes, it's going to be an epic party. It's going to go till late. No, outside. COVID is long gone. Inside, in our beautiful ballroom with round tables, will be I'll give you the first course will be like a filter fish, like a handprint of like chrein, like a bloody hand. Yeah, yum. No, we have a whole murder mystery planned. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We're planning a good party. We're gonna go for many hours. We're gonna go into Shabbos and the Kiddush together. We'll have a good time. And then like 9 o'clock, we'll do the evening Friday night service. We'll see. We're gonna go all out. It'll be great. So join us. If you haven't signed up, you can still do so till tonight. And now I can look at all these comments. Laila Tov, everyone. Good night, Stephanie. Good night, Gail. Good night, Mindy. Mindy, you're very on the target, as always. You know your stuff. Carmen, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed. Maria, thank you. Okay. Murley, thank you. Good night to you as well. JLI tomorrow night, 7:30, B'ezrat Hashem. Good evening, Yochanan. Good evening, Lori. Good evening, everyone. I didn't follow your whole story here. I lost the story. Mila, my kid was born on Purim when it's lost. He was kidnapped in the same way born. I torture in your ways. I'm sorry to hear about that. That's a terrible story, Mila. God should give you lots of blessings and happiness from now on. Only blessings to you. Laila Tov. It's good stuff. Okay. God bless you all. Have a beautiful, happy, healthy, wonderful Purim. B'ezrat Hashem.